Welcome to the deep dive.
Good to be here.
So today we're tackling quite a mix, aren't we? Presidential comments, the Fed, crypto sentiment.
Yeah, it's a fascinating intersection how comments about, monetary policy might be rippling through the digital asset space.
Exactly. And listeners are probably trying to, well, figure out what it all means for their portfolios, for the economy generally.
Makes sense. There's a lot of noise.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We want to unpack these recent statements from former President Trump, the ones aimed at Fed Chair Jerome Powell, and then connect that to what we're seeing in crypto right now, this sort of cautious mood.
That wait and see vibe, yeah.
We're mainly drawing on a crypto potato piece from April 18th, 2025, which kind of pulls these threads together.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Where should we start Trump's comments?
Let's dive right in there. The article references USA Today and Trump's Truth Social feed from April 17th. And the language was, pretty direct.
It certainly was.
Not.
Calling Powell too late Jerome, that definitely got headlines.
Yeah, more than just a nickname. He actually floated the idea of firing him. Said something like, if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
And even went as far as saying Powell's termination cannot come fast enough. That's unambiguous.
It really is. And it wasn't just about Powell personally, was it? There were accusations, too.
Right. He accused Powell of playing politics and flat out said interest rates should be coming down now.
He even drew a comparison, I think, with Europe.
He did, yeah. Pointed to the European Central Bank cutting rates and voiced his opinion that our Fed officials are not very smart.
Okay, so very public, very strong criticism aimed right at the Fed's leadership and policy.
No doubt about it.
But, and this is key, despite all that noise, the Fed, well, they didn't actually cut rates recently, did they?
No, they held firm. The U.S. interest rate is still sitting at 4.5%.
Even with Trump previously talking about tariffs, especially on China?
Right. And Powell himself has actually voiced concerns about those tariffs.
What were his worries specifically?
The big one is stagflation, that nasty mix of rising prices hitting consumers, but the economy itself slowing down. Not a good scenario.
And that ties into the Fed's usual playbook, right? Cut rates if the economy's weak, but hold or raise them if inflation is the bigger problem.
Exactly. You lower rates to kind of juice a sluggish economy, make borrowing cheaper, encourage spending.
But if prices are already climbing too fast,
then cutting rates could just pour fuel on the fire, which seems to be the concern now.
So what is the current inflation situation?
Well, the latest CPI reading, the Consumer Price Index, it's at 2.4%.
Which is still above the Fed's target.
Yeah, their goal is 2%. And the article notes some things like food are seeing even higher inflation rates. So you can see why the Fed might be hesitant to cut just yet.
Okay, so we've got this real tension. Trump pushing hard for lower rates, calling out Powell,
accusing him of politics, questioning his intelligence.
while the Fed is basically saying, hold on, we've got inflation worries, and these tariffs might make things worse.
It's a classic push-pull between, well, political pressure and the central bank's mandate.
So how are the crypto markets taking all this drama? Are they freaking out? Or shrugging it off?
It's actually kind of muted. The crypto potato piece describes the market as relatively flat over the past week.
Flat. So no big swings either way.
Pretty much. Total market cap is just sort of hovering around $2.75 trillion.
In Bitcoin, what's the story there?
It's holding above a key level, $83,000, which is, positive.
Okay.
But it hasn't been able to break through the next big resistance point, which seems to be around $86,000.
So stuck in a range, basically.
Yeah, what the article calls a wait-and-see pattern. The market seems like it's holding its breath, waiting for something.
Waiting for what, though? What are traders thinking?
Well, Sentiment, the analytics firm, they're quoted saying traders are patiently waiting for markets to move.
Patiently waiting. Sounds like frustration might be building.
Maybe. Or just caution. They're waiting for a reason to confidently FOMO in, as the article puts it. That fear of missing out. They need a clearer trigger.
So no big rush to buy or sell based on these Trump-Powell headlines, it seems.
Not immediately, no. But Sentiment also points out something important. While retail sentiment matters, traders know that statements from someone like Trump can shift the narrative very quickly.
Ah, okay. So the current quietness might just be temporary. They're aware things could change fast.
Exactly. It's like they're poised, keeping their powder dry, perhaps.
Interesting. What about the actual likelihood of Powell being fired? All that tough talk from Trump, does the market think it'll happen?
That's where prediction markets come in. The article mentions Kalshi.
Right. What are they showing?
Despite the headlines, the odds are actually pretty low. Cauchy indicates only about a 25% chance that Powell is out as Fed chair sometime in 2025.
It's only 25%. Wow. So the market is kind of discounting the rhetoric.
It seems that way.
Mhm.
Maybe they understand the political or legal hurdles involved, or perhaps they just see it as, well, talk.
So a disconnect between the volume of the criticism and the perceived probability of actual change.
Yeah, that seems to be the case based on those prediction market figures.
Okay, there was one other element mentioned. Something about China.
Ah, yes. Trump apparently hinted at a potential very good deal with China coming soon. Trade talks, essentially.
A potential deal, but is there anything concrete?
Well, that's the thing. The article notes Beijing hasn't publicly confirmed any formal negotiations are happening right now.
So maybe more talk aimed at the markets.
That's what sentiment suggests, according to the article. Using that narrative, perhaps, to try and reassure markets, calm nerves about trade tensions, maybe counteracting the tariff worries.
But without confirmation from China, it's still just speculation.
Pretty much, yeah. It remains uncertain.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. We've got this clear tension point. Trump demanding lower rates, criticizing the Fed chair,
Right, very publicly.
versus the Fed holding the line, pointing to inflation risks, potential tariff impacts.
Yep, citing the data, the 2.4% CPI, the 2% target.
And then you have the crypto markets just sitting there, flat, waiting.
Watching it all unfold, holding above key levels, but not really breaking out. Aware that things could shift quickly based on headlines or actual policy changes.
And the prediction markets suggesting the really dramatic outcome, Powell getting fired, isn't seen as very likely right now.
Despite the noise, yes.
Plus this dangling hint of a China deal, but nothing confirmed.
Adds another layer of wait and see.
It really highlights how sentiment can be swayed, doesn't it? And how quickly things might pivot.
Absolutely. One concrete announcement, either from the Fed, on trade, or even just another strong statement, could potentially break the deadlock.
So maybe the question we leave our listeners with is this. How is this whole situation, this conflict between political pressure and central bank independence, plus the uncertainty around trade, how might that ultimately shape risk-taking?
Yeah, not just in crypto, but across the board. How will investors decide to position themselves in the coming months as this plays out?
Definitely something to keep a close eye on. Lots of moving parts.
For sure. It's far from over.